All right. Um, my friends, thank you for adjusting your schedules. The ironic part was I shifted the shear to tonight as opposed to last night because I was at the Erev conference, but actually I realized I had to get back early to pick up Talia from day school anyway. So I was actually here last night for Mincha Ma'ariv and everything. But okay, we are here. Those who cannot be with us tonight will be able to get it on the Zoom, on YouTube or YUTOR, wherever they're listening to it. And we're basically doing part 2 out of number 2 of examples of how Rav Moshe Feinstein addressed the principle we learned last time called Chukas Akum, which is the prohibition against emulating the ways of the either pagans or non-Jews, depending how you render it, is actually subject to a debate. Now, we basically just spent the entire last time talking about Thanksgiving. That was our little scope of analysis that we had, our case study, we may call it. And we basically concluded with a very interesting point that Moshe Feinstein made. He said that when the Ramah, when the major pillar of Ashkenazic halacha, when he said that any custom of the non-Jews that doesn't have any obvious reason for it, we are concerned for Darchei Amori, basically following the ways of the pagans. So the basic understanding of the standard understanding is that we're concerned that, somehow, some way, the roots of it started in pagan religion. But Rav Moshe Feinstein said, no, Darchei Amori means that introducing a new ritual or rite without reasonable basis is inherently, by definition, what we call Chukas Akum. That's what the Akum, that's what the pagans do. They make up rituals for no good reason. So his assertion was, big deal about turkey. They would have found something else to eat. And if they didn't find something else to eat, some other people would have come with food. And we'd still have America in the long run anyway. Now, it's an interesting question because there is something called the butterfly effect. There was a movie based on it. It's pretty dark, actually. But basically, the principle comes from Ray Bradbury. He had a story about that. I forget what was the name of that short story. Essentially, these people go back. There's a tourist agency that could take you back in time to the dinosaurs, but they have this one rule: like keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. Don't touch anything. And apparently, what happened was some guy accidentally killed, I think it was a butterfly or some small creature, and then they come back to the future, which is another good movie, and they see that all of a sudden all hell has broken loose, and there's some evil tyrant who's running the country, and this and that, and they all because somehow by killing that one thing, it set off a whole domino effect. And that guy wasn't there that day, and he sneezed, and then that fly went in that person's face, and then he lost the election. And, you can think of all these things. So that's what we kind of talked about last time. All right, just seeing if anyone was on the Zoom over there. Okay, so now we're just going to do a little bit of a panoply of different Chukas Akum related issues that come up. If you would like to follow along, we are on the last section of page number 3. There is a tshuva in Os Hey. The question is, if someone is hired as a teacher at a standard public school, is he allowed to teach Greco-Roman studies in his class? Is he allowed to teach about Greco-Roman mythology, which naturally one would discuss, about the pagan gods? This was a question that was posed to Rav Moshe Feinstein. So not to go through the entire analysis, we'll actually kind of skip a little bit closer to the end. If you go to page 4 and you look at on the left side at the final paragraphs, Rav Moshe says that the Gemara tells us that when it comes to avodah zara, when it comes to idols, we actually generally we're supposed to be very kind and gracious people, but we're actually allowed to denigrate avodah zara. We're supposed, not just allowed to, it's commendable that we talk about how silly and how absurd it all is. We're supposed to do that. Okay, so that was the second last paragraph. And then the final one he writes, Bimkain, final paragraph on page 4. Bimkain, Kishet Sarach Lamid Biha. Of course. Shalo inyane daseim vehevlehem. When one needs to teach about their emptiness, their religion. Tzarich ledaber b'lashon shiavinu shehem inyane shtus vehevel. He says, actually, when you can't teach about mythology, but you should point out how silly it is. Well, like Zeus is coming down to Earth, and then he's having demigod children, and then talk about all the. It's kind of fascinating, but it's there was a fantasy series. Oh, actually, that's the next source. I don't want to ruin it. So, Ukahash Amar, I guess it's Rav Nachman b'Megillah Daf Chaf Hey. Asira bar litzinusa de Akum desharia, that all denigration is prohibited in Jewish law except for the denigration of idol worship. In fact, not only is it permissible to denigrate, but often zem mutter v'gam efshar yavi kitzas toeles mizeh sheyav mizeh shafata yishkam adom shaf shmagzikim harbi b'nei adam shei be'emes havalim with divrei shtus, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, I'll just say outside instead of reading the entire paragraph in Hebrew aloud. He argues not only is it permissible, but actually, if you do it the right way, it might be commendable to teach the mythology in school. But the way it should be taught, looking at the next page, is in contradistinction to our religion, to the Jewish faith. So he says, right, kol olam sachu aleim uvazu osam v'ata yodim kol umusa olam she'emes haya im Yisrael b'zeh. So, everyone's been denigrating the Jewish people, but now, back then, everyone's like, well, how can you not believe in the Greek gods and the Roman gods? This is the predominant religion. I mean, the truth is, didn't Socrates and Aristotle kind of doubt the gods? Wasn't that their whole thing? Okay, not everyone was on the bandwagon. And so he says, there's actually a toelis. There's a benefit if done the right way. And the truth is, I don't think anyone teaches mythology as theology. And I mean, no one's teaching it prescriptively. We teach it descriptively. So he says, look, we should be, even though we feel the same way about Christianity and about the more popular religions, we shouldn't be going into set up a table on a college campus and say Christianity's wrong, convince me otherwise, or like people do that with political stuff. They set up on campus and they put a very provocative statement and say, argue me, dispute me on this. So we shouldn't be doing that. And this actually relates to a topic we'll talk about in the future. We're going to do a separate class on Rav Moshe Feinstein's approach to the United States of America and to Jewish, non-Jewish relations. It's a little bit more complicated than most people portray it. Most people are familiar, or at least on social media, every time there's an election season, there's some guy who shares Rav Moshe's letter about voting, and like, oh yes, Rav Moshe was all into the United States. He was, and you see that right over here that he's grateful. He says, we're guests in this country. And this country's been so good to us. So, oh, by the way, I'm very proud. So when we went down to the City Hall for Veterans Day, and I said the prayer over there, I opened up the prayer by saying that Rav Moshe Feinstein, the leading rabbi of the 20th century, referred to the United States as Medina Chesed, as a country of loving kindness. And then I said, and it's only made possible by the men and women who served to defend it. But so I think, I don't know, maybe you could tell me, or Dr. Noam Cohen could tell me. I think that's the first time that Rav Moshe Feinstein's name has been invoked at Allentown City Hall. I could be wrong. It's possible someone else did, but I have my doubts. So
do rabbis now consider ourselves guests in America, or do they consider us as American as anyone else?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you well, here's the funny thing. If you're in the Haredi world, they say we're guests because this is a Gaisha Medina. It's run by non-Jews. It's and they don't have any aspiration. And if you talk to someone who's in the more Zionistic world, of course they'll tell you that, because they're like, yeah, we should be moving to Israel. So either way you slice it, there's not that many people who make like a lichatchila diasporic Judaism claim. But look, I think we're allowed to be proud Americans and grateful for where we are. It's nothing wrong with that as far as I could tell. And Rav Moshe Feinstein, by the way, in Man Malchi Rabbanan, in the biography, at the beginning of the 8th volume of Igros Moshe, it says that he promoted voting not just for pragmatic purposes, but he actually believed that the voting was a demonstration of that Hakar Satov, of that recognition of gratitude to the United States of America. So yeah. But anyway, he was overall very, very grateful, very patriotic to America. There's a nice piece in Darash Moshe where he talks about the importance of religious liberty. So, I'm whetting your appetite. This is usually whenever I give the little Devar Torah between Mincha and Maariv on weekdays or in the morning, I, inevitably or invariably, I wind up saying, and this will be a future Monday night topic. And that's basically, I think I have about 37 of these sheets already made, and there'll hopefully be 50 of them in the end. So this will last us for a while. We got ground to cover, my friends. Now why is this tshuva so interesting? Because of the reception of it. So I've since muted it because I'm in too many WhatsApp groups. But there's this nice WhatsApp group with Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Rimon, who is a very prominent religious Zionist scholar in Eretz Yisrael. He puts out these really great books that have flow charts that just explain everything. It's I was I have the Haggadah, I have the Purim edition. I basically anything that he touches is like gold. It just anything he touches all of a sudden becomes clear. I wish he could make some book that explains how to file my taxes. That'd be they should just have him do everything. So there was a question. The text over here on page 5 is from something that was put in that WhatsApp group. A rabbi asked him about a certain book. You see in the bold over there in Os Vav, page 5, right over here. Does anyone know what these words are? Very good. So when I was in high school, I think they just started coming out, and now there's a million of them. So I only read the original series, and maybe a little bit of the follow-ups, but then there was then he does Greek mythology, but then he does follow-up series on Roman mythology, and then he does a follow-up series on Egyptology. He basically does all the different pantheons. And it's actually cool because he did his research. So it's like a fun kids fantasy novel. At the same time, you actually wind up learning a lot of mythology along the way. So Mado, we might call it. So in Rav Rimon's analysis of whether a kid can read Percy Jackson, which is full of Greek mythology, he quotes Reisi Sharav Moshe Feinstein Hitter Lamora Bebeis Sefer Lamitz Talmidim Shalo Al Ha Mythologia Hayavanit. So it's mythologia. There's no th, I guess, in Hebrew. That's why. But he says, I actually found a precursor. I found precedent for me to analyze this. Moshe Feinstein, a couple generations earlier, ruled that you could teach Greek mythology in the classroom. And we're not going to go through the entire analysis over here, but if you look at the bottom line, which is the last paragraph on page 5, he says that most people don't subscribe. No one believes, most people, I should say. I'm sure there's a few weird people out there, but majority of the world. I'm sure you go to Greece and you find, take your random Greek person off the street. They probably don't believe in Poseidon and Hades and Aphrodite and Zeus and whatever. And the truth is, Vikam Hayalatim min hastam yodim shemadubar b'dvarim lo amitim shehem korim rak v'shil hadimyon. And look, you think kids who are reading Percy Jackson believe in the mythology they're reading? No, it's called a fantasy series because it is fantasy. That's the genre. It's in the name. It's like that. It's like not to get too political, but there was once in one of these Q&As on the college campus, and someone asked the person, you can say anything if you want to, asked, why can't there be girls in the Boy Scouts? And then he answered, it's in the name. It says Boy Scouts. So it's in the name. It says fantasy. Right, there you go. Now you know what I'm talking about? It was Ben Shapiro. Okay. Anyway, okay. Now.
If they see it as a word, they see it on the computer, they believe it. It's real.
Yeah. That's like a lot of the media these days, right? Anyway, going forward. In kan baya shel avoda zara chadoma v'lo mishana im achin yeshnam alpayim ish b'yavan shesogdim la. And you know what he says? Apparently, even if there's 2,000 people in Greece somewhere that are still going to the Greco-Roman temples and doing whatever rituals they want, that's not going to affect it. It's not considered reading Avodah Zarah, and so Rav Remote says it's mutter. So now I'm glad that post facto, all those years ago when I read Percy Jackson, apparently, well, this is a funny thing, by the way. So both Christians, from Christians and very from Jews, opposed reading Harry Potter. But from what I realized, interestingly, in the Christian world, they are very opposed to Harry Potter because of Kisha, because of magic. They are like very sensitive. Anything that has magic in it. The funny thing is, you go to like the yeshivish and Hasidish world. The reason that they're opposed to Harry Potter, like they're not really afraid about the magic part. They just don't like that the boys and girls are in the same classes or something. So actually, it's kind of funny. Like the right wing of both religions oppose it, but I think they're sensitive for different reasons. That's just my read on the topic. Anyway, okay, so that was example number one. The main event is on page 7. So I remember this was something that always irked me when I was growing up. So when do you think I finished high school? During the week, like when do you think the day ended? Keep going. 3 days a week it was 8:30. 1 day a week it was early at 6:30, so you could do your homework. High school. Yeah. And then in 12th grade, we opted in to finish till 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
It was a very Orthodox high school. Mesivta, that's what they call it. So, and we didn't get Sundays off either. Sundays were till 2:30. So yeah, so we there wasn't much of a life outside of the confines of the yeshiva. Anyway, in 12th grade, I actually wound up dorming, even though I lived only 10-minute drive away, but my mom was not going to drive out at 10 o'clock at night to pick me up every night. So my brother and I dormed.
Because my producer had a son who was living from the time we went to high school.
Yeah. Yeah, at a Mesivta, at a yeshivish high school, that's not unheard of at all whatsoever, because you're learning late into the night. So who's going to pick you up? You don't have your driver's license yet. So that's exactly. Now, why do I bring this up? I don't bring this up to lament. Baruch Hashem, it was a wonderful high school. Yeshiva Darchei Torah, we got great education. They're partially responsible for whatever I'm doing today, for better or for worse. So the reason I bring this up is because if you look at Os Yud on page 7, the first source, the topic of the following tshuva is Isser Levatel Limudim B'Yeshiva B'Yom Aleph, the prohibition of cessation of studies in yeshiva on Sunday. Now, when it says yeshiva, this was something also I noticed when I kind of transition. That's what they say. I transitioned into the mono-Orthodox world. So I realized that the term yeshiva, people use that to mean your yeshiva gap year program in Israel. The word yeshiva in yeshivish circle just means like you call the elementary school, your elementary day school is called yeshiva. It's all yeshiva. So here it's not referring to yeshiva gap year program. It's referring to elementary school, junior high school, high school. So Ramosha Feinstein argues that it is prohibited to omit to have a cessation of studies on Sunday, which actually maybe he's very Zionistic in that way. He wants to be like the Israelis who also have work on Sundays. Do they have school on Sundays in Israel?
Yeah.
Oh, so you see, maybe. Yeah, it's like during the summer when I wear my sandals and Marissa thinks they look really weird on me. I say no, I'm very Zionistic. This is my ode to Israel. She can't argue with me on that. So anyway, so argument number one. What? Yeah, she's the one who went to Hank, and I'm the one who went to Darchei. So I'm like, hey, you're the one who's like got the
sandals with socks or without socks?
Without socks. Wait, which one's worse?
With socks is rep for it's cool.
It's cool?
With socks. I mean, without socks. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it because it's cool. I do because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
Because you can breathe. It's hot outside. I don't know if you can tell. I don't do things for the fashion statement usually. Anyway, where was I? So what are the issues? Number one, bittul Torah, because that's 1 day less of studying Torah. That's pretty straightforward. But also, this is the part that's interesting for our topic. In the bold, toward the end of the paragraph, Levad kol zeh, and aside for all the Torah that's going to be squandered, hari mechur hadavar lehistamos lahanachrim, shayom harishon yischach yom menucha. Sunday is the holy day for the Christians during the week. So if we were to dismiss everyone from the schools, it looks like we are trying to emulate the non-Jews. Why do non-Jews have off on Sunday? So that they could go to church on Sunday. So remember, this sounds a little similar to our Thanksgiving concerns that we had before. But notice how it's not just Thanksgiving, but it's expanded even to Sundays as well. But look at Osir Aleph now. Similar kind of argument. This is going to be relevant very soon also. He says, Shemechaf Vav December ad Acher Rosh Hashanah Chadasha Shalahem, that from the 26th of December until after their New Year's, that also is prohibited for sending the students on vacation. And he says, Shal kol panim hu ma'isa iser ve'ein hakavana misalekes ha'isser. And he says, wait, we're just giving the kids off because they don't have secular studies anyway. Let them go on yeshiva break, right? Don't they call it yeshiva week or something like? Well, yeshiva is stafka not that. See, I see. We're very from. You see, that's the reason that we.
My daughter was attending Korea. I remember thinking it was brilliant. I know you know what I'm talking about. The week of the 25th. The 25th, the secular teachers, if they didn't have to attend, but everybody else did.
Yeah.
That's where they had their color wars.
Oh, that's how they have.
Why is it pressure though with the parents who also had a
That's
Yeah.
different.
wanted to take the kids out of school?
Yeah, it's a great idea. Why can't we just give holidays? It'd be great to go.
Brought her out. Yes.
Oh boy.
Came back.
Oh boy.
Correct.
Yikes. Well, so if you look at the next source, we're just going to go on a little bit of a tour over here. It's my little buffet of different sources that relate to this. The next one also, this is not about a holiday per se, but this is now we're going right. So Sundays are an issue because the non-Jews the Christians are going to church, but now we're going to expand things a little bit. What if it's not like one of the non-Jews holy days? What about just like the notion of recreation in general? Can recreation be treif? So this is Rabbi Wiener. You already brought this up last session. We're going to get to your source again in just a moment. So he invokes back to Sefer Vayikra Kedoshim. Says don't follow the ways of the pagans, and he says that to go to the theaters and the stadiums. He doesn't say Broadway explicitly, but that's probably more or less what he has in mind, or maybe even maybe go to the sports games as well. He says it's late sanos, that it's I guess frivolity. I mean, how would you frivolity? I guess the best translation. Ubital Torah. It's squandering time that could be done for Torah, and also demagari yitzar shalarayis benafshe, and also there's sexual impropriety that generally is done there as well. And mind you, this is written in the early 1980s. Things have probably gotten only worse since then. If you look at the next source, this is from Igros Hashkafa. At the end of one of the, I forget, it's volume 8 or volume 9, I think it's volume 9 of Igros Moshe, there's a short collection of what's called Igros Hashkafa, which are non-halachic responsa, more like letters that are related to just general Jewish outlook on issues, more ideological. And here, he says, "Hine nidhamti lishma yesh mishomrei Torah mitzvos shaholchim el ha vacation yom depagra shalahem." That they go on. Oh, I should put that on the sheet for when we do the trivia night for vacation. V'gam al hachagim asher nitnu l'sor l'tshuva l'masim tovim. And even on the Jewish holidays, what's the point of the Jewish holidays? It's to think about repenting. It's to do mitzvos. It's to think about the miracles God did for the Jewish people. And they go to the hotels. Shemachal, and it's a Shabbos Yarama, where they're violating Shabbos without any constraints. And then go to the bold. Asher all mizah mod chas sham yos mushpa mizah. We can be influenced by the Chilul Shabbos, by the desecration of Shabbos. Ukvar usharno liros bekia mitzvah satorah shlo liros bechol mitzvah satorah. Kilavat ashba magdal yosa itza mechalei Torah v'rabba avreim chil shem shemaim. So he's worried about the influence of these. Now you might say, wait, now we have all these Jewish hotel programs that go on. There are other issues, but I'm not going to talk about them. Why? Because I'll repeat my principle. You'll very rarely hear me get up there at the pulpit and rail against the Pesach programs because every rabbi complains about them until they get invited on one. So I'm holding out till one day we'll take the Sons of Israel Pesach vacation program. That's okay. It's like you're just going, you're just basically rolling people. If you ever saw the updated Willy Wonka, but like Violet just eats the raspberry and she grows really big and they have to roll her from one room to the other. So just like from the tea room to the lunch till second breakfast till what's Levensies or whatever. Midnight Madness. That reminds me, when I was at YU, they had Sephardic. They had there was a flyer by the Sephardic meeting. It was called Sephardic Slichot Mega Bash event. Those were the words, and it was just like Sephardic Slichos, but it was a Mega Bash. I'm like, wow, what's going on in here? I imagine like a disco ball comes down and like, I mean, they do have a lot of fun there, I guess. Anyway. We still got more sources that have to do with this. Look at Osya Dalan on page 8. Now, not just does he rail against those who are wasting their time. I didn't put the source on the sheet, by the way, but I should put it on. There's a source in Darche. Did I put it on here? In Darche Moshe, where he actually tells somebody to dafka go on vacation so that way his wife and kids can have fun. So we're going to see some. Basically, what I'm showing you right now are all the sources where he seems to sound like he is opposed to having any fun or recreation or any joy in life. Well, joy in life other than Torah, of course, that's a true joy in life. In a moment, we'll see other sources which push against this, where he seems to be very open to people having a good time. Speaking of good time, look at Os Tesvav. He says, because all the blessings God has given us in this world, in this country, and we have all these different kinds of pleasures. Shekorn lezeh, good time. I remember when I first read this, I was saying to myself, what kind of halachic concept is there? There's a concept called good asik, which means that, a wall that's 40 inches tall or so, it's considered as if it goes up, or good achis, like it goes down. I always like to joke, the Christians, they have Good Friday, but we have good asik, and we have good achis. So it's much better. Come to our side. But apparently there's a third one I didn't know called good time, which is English. It's good. That's not Hebrew. So he says it's not just about having this thing called a good time. Now, mind you, Moshe Feinstein didn't speak English, so like these are just like the phrases he hears in America. So that was something else that he railed against, the notion of just having a good time. That I think the kids these days call it YOLO. You only live once, or I don't know if that's still a thing. Now they say this number 6-7 or something. Have you heard about this? Yes. Okay. All right. Now, one more thing. This is back to Rabbi Wiener's source. If you turn to the next page, page 9, this is the one I got a big kick out of. He was talking about whether you could have a magician perform. And then he talks about barchanim, about people who are like jesters, who just come and are entertainers. So he says in the second to last paragraph on the right side here on page 9, he says, "Velo shamati." He says it's okay to have it, but velo shamati shebekan osa barchanas bichlal. I never heard of them doing any of these barchanas things, of these jesters coming in. And what is all this fun that you speak of? I mean, he says I can answer from a theoretical standpoint, but I haven't actually seen it in practice. Right? He says, but as far as practical ruling is concerned, I've never seen this in my life before. So that I got a big kick out of. Yeah.
I had a classmate whose parents were Holocaust survivors, so they were European. And for George's bar mitzvah, they hired a Bachman who only spoke in Yiddish.
Oh, wow.
And we're sitting there, the class, none of us had any idea what he was saying. Not a clue. And he was just going on and on telling jokes in Yiddish.
Well, there's a lot of Hasidic fellows at this Erev conference I was just at. And so at the lunchtime, different people, me and a few other people, got to take turns presenting like what was going on in their communities. I got to talk about all the wonderful things in Allentown. Yeah, so thank you. I always appreciate the support. So, there you go. Like and subscribe, as they say. So why did I bring that up? So there's all these Hasidim over there. So there's an Israeli guy who got up two people before me. He spoke only in Hebrew, and everyone's like, "Well, what's going on here?" And then someone spoke in English, and now I got them like, "Okay, I guess it's my turn. I got to speak in Yiddish now." So they got a few chuckles in the room. So yeah. Well, though I think it's possible these guys like. I think they do all sorts of things. I think they have like a whole routine. Like part of it is like, yeah, juggling and magic, like basically like a jester, you know? A jester has like a whole repertoire of things that he does. But then again, I'll have to make the Ramosha Feinstein claim and say, I don't know what this Badchanas thing is. See, I could be really from also. Okay. Now I want to get to the other side of things. Up until now, it sounds like our Moshe Feinstein says we should all be miserable. Well, not miserable. We should all just be studying Torah all day, and that's probably pretty much what he holds. But I think there's a few mitigating sources that give a little bit more nuance over here, if you'll permit me, Rabbi Weeder. So if you look at Osi and Zayin, this is the left column on page number 9. This is about kind of just reading about, I imagine almost like a what's it called? A Reader's Digest, or National Geographic. So he says Lufum Rihata. So if one wants this, while they just need a little bit of time to wind down, it's okay. Rak be'in ba'alma b'sho samanucha. During in between, he's studying Gemara and then studying halacha, whatever. So you need a little bit of a break, so you could read some National Geographics in between. Okay, we're starting to open up the door a little bit here. Rav Aaron Felder, in Rishumi Aaron, so he's a student of Moshe, reports that Rav Moshe Feinstein on his birthday, on his birthday, you think maybe he would say, "I'm going to learn extra on my birthday." I mean, I'm sure he did as well, but he apparently was willing to carve out a little time just for a quick little l'chaim with his buddies. Again, that means nothing. If I do it, that means nothing. But when you're talking about someone who finished Shas, the entire Talmud at least 202 times, if not more, we know that 202 from a story because there's a story with Rav Moshe that I'm gonna botch. I'm butchering how it went, but basically, he's like, let's grab l'chaim. Oh, what's the occasion? Oh, I finished Shas for the second time. What? You only learned 2 times? Oh, sorry, the second time that I did 101 times. So we know he at least finished 202 times, and most people haven't done it all, including myself. And for people who do daf yomi, how many times in someone's lifespan are they going to finish daf yomi? So there you go. Now Osiates. This is all right. Let's get up Al-Kore. Actually, we have a story on page 9 from the Rabbi Pesach Krohn book, In the Footsteps of the Maggid. As it's one of the books that I have by my seat, so that way I can flip through and I put bookmarks in, so that way I can find something good to share in a drush on Shabbos. And then anytime I see the name of Moshe Feinstein show up, all of a sudden I'm like, like there's like a little alarm bell in my head that goes off, and I'm like, quick, throw it onto a source sheet somewhere. So we found something. Amy, you want to read it? Okay.
In the Footsteps of the Maggid by Rav Pesach Krohn. A second memorable indication of Rav Moshe's understanding love for his son would occur in the Connecticut bungalow colony where the Feinstein family spent its summers. There were not many facilities to keep the children of the gifts occupied. Therefore, when the owner of the colony would take his pickup truck into town to purchase supplies for his guests, all the children were allowed to sit in the hay-lined back of the open-ended truck, and they frolicked happily as the truck made its way along the bumpy roads. Rav Moshe used to spend quite a bit of time learning with his son Reuben. However, when he noticed the truck was about to leave, he would tell his son to close the sefer, get on the truck, and enjoy the ride. He assured me we would make up the time learning another time. Reuben explained, however, he knew what was important to a child, so he encouraged me to go.
Very good. So
when I went to camp in the summers, we used those trucks.
Oh yeah.
In the back of the truck, and it was an open-ended thing, and
so
it was never allowed today, but
it's a plausible story. So this is connected. The source right before in Osiates and Mega Givos Olam, another student of Moshe Feinstein, Rebbe Shurkin, says very similar story. He was learning with one of his sons, and he heard a commotion outside. He asked his son what was happening. He said, "Oh, the kids are playing ball." And he says, "Why don't you go out and play ball?" So he like says, "Shelo ratza gon Moshe zatzal shebeno yargish shalim at Torah monea mimenu mashu b'yanimi chaimish hashui hayeladim." He didn't want him to feel that, to be a devout Jew meant that you had to lose out on your childhood. So this is reported in, I don't know if it's different versions of the same story or just he was very consistent on this. And now, mind you, I didn't put it on the sheet, but in the Ramosha biography, Man Malchi Rabbanan, it says that Ramosha himself had no interest in playing ball as a kid, and he just wanted to learn. So he actually made up an excuse and said that he was too embarrassed. He's just a short little kid, and he's not athletic. And then he just used that as his excuse to go and learn during his break. With that in mind, he still understood that it was healthy for his kid to engage in it. So it makes it all the more understandable. And again, if I tell my kid to go ahead and have fun, that doesn't mean anything because I waste a lot of time. But Moshe Feinstein, again, who is, as he's wrapping up his tefillin, he's trying to learn another Mishnah or something at every moment that, he really cheshbons, he calculates every single minute. That means something. Okay. Similar idea. Look at page 10, Oskaf Aleph, that they want to build a gym at Mesivta Tiferes Yerushalayim, at his yeshiva. In fact, Marissa's grandfather and grandmother got married in that gym. I think under the basketball hoop. That's what they said. That was the chuppah, essentially, was under the basketball hoop. So he said, "Die Bachrim Zel and Spielen." I hope my Yiddish is terrible. Okay. He's like, he says, yeah, let the Bachrim, let the kids go play and have ball and have fun. So he understood that. And finally, a similar story in Darchei Moshe. We're getting the whole buffet tonight of all the secondary sources on Rav Moshe. In Darchei Moshe, there's a story about a kid who Rav Moshe noticed was sitting on the side while all the kids were playing ball, and he goes over to the kid and says, "What's wrong?" And the kid says, "Oh, I don't know how to play the game. I'm afraid to play with them." So Rav Moshe basically called the kid over. Lokach avi ba'atzos kador v'sichek imo lemeshech eser dakos k'di largil b'mischak. So Ramosha calls him over, and they practice playing with the ball together for 10 minutes, presumably until the kid was confident enough that he could then go join the rest of the kids. So there's a lot of stories about how Rav Moshe was, not just a teacher, but he was a father figure to many of those kids. So Marissa's grandfather, not to get too much into family history, but things were a little complicated for them. He was living at MTJ at the yeshiva, and Rav Moshe would have him over to the Feinstein family for their Pesach Seder. He really took responsibility. With Rav Ephraim Greenblatt, there's a story in the Art Scroll biography that Rav Ephraim Greenblatt's parents couldn't afford the tuition. Well, what happened was he noticed that he wasn't coming to class anymore. So Rav Moshe himself personally went over to the Greenblatt house and to ask what was wrong. And he said to little Ephraimel, why don't you come to school? He says, "Oh, well, it's difficult. My parents, immigrants, they don't make a lot of money, and it's too difficult for tuition for the school." And he said, Rav Moshe asked him, "Do you want to learn?" He says, "Yes." Then come and learn. That's and then they walk into the sunset together back to MTJ, and Rav Ephraim Greenblatt becomes one of the greatest students of Rav Moshe Feinstein, the author of Rivos Ephraim, and Rav Moshe said, "If you want to learn Torah, come learn Torah." And he went out in the community and ensured that was the case. The file source on here is. Did I not put it on here? Is it not PC enough? Is that why I didn't put it on here? No, here it is. Os Chaf Gimel. Now, what does it have to do with Chukas Akum? So if you remember, my friends, we started off talking about how taking Sunday off for recreation is an issue of emulating the ways of non-Jews. Now, what about general recreation? So even for general recreation, one needs to be careful about Chukas Akum. How so? So if you look at Oschaf Gimel, and we'll conclude with this on page 10, it says, Hamachas Big Marine Rabbi is at Sal, Livchon, Kita Shal Yelad B'nei Eser Sham, Mesif Teferes Yishlaim, Shagom Perak Shnayim Oksen. So they were studying the beginning of Bava Kama, one of the Talmudic tractates, and Moshe came into the what do we say, the 10th grade class, or the 12th grade class. Sorry, 10th grade. What's that? 10-year-olds. And Ramosha was testing them. When he got in, he asked them the first question. What do you do when you get home after a full day of school? We put
Ball.
yeah, we play ball. Misachim b'chadur. You see, they put the Hebrew in parentheses. I go to Ramosha Zatzal, nenem opazeh. Ramosha was very pleased to hear this, and he said, "All right, Abby, you want to tell us what's the next one?"
Yeah, he said, they're good.
They're good. Uh-huh.
You have to play ball. Aber wie a Yid spielt Ball und nicht wie a Goy spielt Ball.
There's a difference between how a Yid plays ball and how a guy plays ball. So he said,
You shouldn't be playing like wild animals.
and there's one more line. Oh, there's a little more.
You're schreien and you shouldn't be yelling.
Yeah.
Je darf euch spielen Ball, aber wie a Yid spielt Ball.
Right.
You shouldn't be, I guess, cursing or yelling.
All right. So when we get to his to the Shir on Moshe's relations with non-Jews, we'll talk about the implications of this line a little bit more. But we'll spin it in the non-pejorative manner. He says, Ramosha apparently comes out when we look beyond the Igros Moshe and we notice the sources over here. It's the literature. There's what he wrote and there's how he lived. I've noticed a lot of times, even his chuvos, when we talk about secular studies, his chuvos against secular studies are very firm and uncompromising. But then you talk to all the people that were in his inner circle and he gave their blessings for him to go to college, thinking about his son-in-law, Rabbi Dr. Moshe David Tedler, Zechor Levracha, who was within his orbit. So,
And his daughter, Sifra.
and his daughter, and that's how they met. That's how they met. They were both discussing science in the library in Lower East Side.
They had 8 children.
Yeah.
She went back to school.
Yeah. So, but that's the point. Ramosha was more flexible on recreation than the Chuvas let us on once you read all these stories. But the important thing is that even when we are doing these things that are not inherently religious, that they're more secular in nature, we still have to remember that we have to go doing it with the dignity and the expectations that the Torah would demand of us. All right.
I know I've been told about a